Yo, guys, what is up? Welcome back to another episode of Marijuana Say Weekly. And today we have a bit of a more debatey sort of topic. We're going to be talking about the disastrous unemployment in South Africa, and quite frankly, how cannabis could be a saving grace for SA to boost its economy and boost its employment figures. Look, it's not going to be a one-hit solve everything kind of problem, kind of solution, but it's one small thing that they really could do, which would open up jobs. And yeah, I mean, I think, Dean, what was it? We're sitting at like 32% unemployment or something like that.
Massive amounts of
4.4
unemployment in South Africa. And what's unique about cannabis is it's not just like a single industry that it ties into. It ties into so many different industries. It ties into tourism, it ties into agriculture, it ties into hospitality, it ties into processing. So there's so many different industries that could all benefit from the cannabis industry, and a lot of cannabis creation is still quite labor intensive, So the farming especially, there's a lot of labor involved in the farming and processing and transport. So I think by the government not prioritizing the recreational market so hard and going archaic with their like very slow movement, they're overlooking something which could really create a lot of jobs and fast. I mean, if you look at the industry we sit in now, we sit in a decriminalized industry with very little regulation. And there's already so many jobs that have been created by all the grow shops and, canna brands and people making clothing brands. So, I mean, already in the very short time.
That's not even
it's not even the tip of the iceberg.
Yeah.
It's just like the diehards who have got in now. Hasn't even like hit the mainstream market just yet, So I think we're sitting in a place where we could benefit heavily from it because of how broad the industry is. And I think mostly for me, I think the tourism industry is something that could absolutely boom with job creation within South Africa. And I don't think it's something that's really a priority for the government. It's counting plants right now that's the government's priority, not like making loads of tourism money off like tourists coming into the country to experience the cannabis culture of South Africa, which I think could be massive. Huge. I mean, from my time in the wine industry, you could see just how many people came specifically to South Africa to come to the wine farms. Now imagine if we had cannabis farms where people are come to the yoga retreat / restaurant / cannabis tasting or whatever you're doing on this like awesome farm, and just how many people will be flooding into South Africa, and all
spending
of that
their
is
pounds,
massive.
Their dollars, their euros, and it goes like so far here. And the thing is, it's so annoying that it's just like a rule, they just need to like change the rule.
It's not like sign a paper. But there's like so much debate that goes into the signing of the paper that it takes like 5 to 10 years for them to get like anywhere with it.
Why don't they just? Yeah, I don't know. It's infuriating. So I mean, tourism's one industry that could do really well. I think also another thing is where they're not going to be spending like wasteful expenditure, which is the country needs its money. And they're wasting all this money on the war on drugs and spending all this money on putting people in jail for growing weed, when it's constitutionally been allowed for adult private consumption and home growing, and now they're still wasting their money on putting people in jail because people are still getting arrested. And it's just we don't have the resources. The police shouldn't be. In a country strapped for cash, the police shouldn't be spending their time putting people away for a joint and a bud here and there. They should be putting people away for, proper crimes where there's like murder. Yeah.
But they're too busy like with gangs. Their rulers trying to like work out how they're going to like police people's number of plants they can grow over like thinking, okay, cool, how can we benefit financially and put more? They could use it to put more money into a struggling police force to go and fight actual crime. Whereas right now the priority seems on like sort of communist rule over the plant, over like free trade on something which is proven globally to make a lot of money. If you look at the recreational states in America, the cannabis industry is booming, and it has been booming for like 20 years, whereas in South Africa we're sitting in a position where sort of massive investment isn't taking place because there's a slow drag with regulation. very select few are actually able to go and benefit on the larger scale. So that just holds up job creation and investment. And I mean, there's a big international interest in the South African market as well. Just not, it's not 100% ideal, but to get, because you want to see the local market benefit, but to get massive amounts of investment into the country, it's also just not a bad thing. When we constantly getting downgraded, getting put into junk status because of the way of our financials, we could have millions and billions of rands coming in via one specific industry, which doesn't really seem to be as prioritized by the government. But I wonder if that also just comes from like a lack of education. I mean, look at what Myrtle was saying, last week at the oral submissions in Parliament. You have the people making the decisions who they don't even understand that they still think you like smoke the seeds.
Yeah. And that's, I mean, in all fairness, I get that. I mean, I get that it's there is misconceptions around it. And to be honest, 25 years ago, 30 years ago, pre us being on this planet and okay, maybe a bit longer than that, even like 50 years ago, it was unilaterally forbidden. Like the global consensus on cannabis was like probably 90% people hated it. Thought it was the devil's lettuce and make you rape women and whatever. And that's what they were told from a kid. Like, no, that's bad. This is bad, right from like it's indoctrinated in them. And now they're coming out. I mean, sure, maybe they didn't think for themselves and actually go like, but these kids are just stoned, like, they're sitting on the floor giggling, whereas like other drugs are bad and you can see straight away they're bad, their teeth are falling out and shit like that. But I understand how they can now, you've been arresting people, say you're a police officer, you've been arresting people for 30 years, you're a constable, policeman, and you've been arresting kids for smoking weed for 30 years.
And that's your job because you're told to do it.
Yeah.
You can't not do it. It's like,
and now all of a sudden they're like, no, it's fine. Like, don't arrest them for it. It's like, it's going to take a while.
In your muscle memory.
Yeah. But I mean, that's part of the the undereducation.
But I think if you even look to when I was a child, we were told that cannabis is, like the worst and whatever. But I think we've been privileged to grow up with the internet and access to information at the fingertips. And now it's way harder to keep people in the dark as the governments or whatever or ulterior motives that they have. Because people can just go on Google now and just Google and have like free information coming at you from all kinds of different sources.
Exactly.
The good and the bad.
It's
if
not
you've got a discerning mind.
It's not an excuse to be ignorant, anymore, because it's like that same period of time we could say the same about people being gay or lesbian or bi or whatever. It's like that was also basically that was illegal in some countries and stigmatized and this and that, and it's like you can't keep putting it in this box. It's like if we didn't change about those things, it's like it's not an excuse. We have to start. There was undereducation about that. They got educated from the right people, pushing the right motives and agendas and things like that. And cannabis is still getting left behind. And I think you saw that video the other day with that guy from the African National Christian Party. He's talking about how he like hates, he's still anti-cannabis and anti-THC, and it's ruining kids' lives and stuff like that. You can see those are people in very influential positions that are still
but they just relying on like whatever some person scripted, because if you watch that video carefully, there was like no thought behind that guy's eyes. He had his paper in front of him and someone had written down his notes, and he gets asked a question, and every time he was asked a question to like think for himself, he just like look at his paper and like repeat what he had already said in like slightly different words from like his notes on his paper. So like he wasn't really like facilitating intelligent conversation. He was just like spewing off propaganda, and then the news guy is just like being the news guy, a reporter. He's just like trying to be subjective about it, but you could see that he definitely was. He knew what he was talking about, but I just feel that like that once again the like lack of education around the act around what weed actually is. I mean, he was referencing it to mandrax at points as well. That all weed has mandrax in it. And like that's just like the old schoolers thinking that you can get, you know. It's like what my granny used to think kind of like, you know.
I mean, look, I mean, we can't keep living in a country with 30-40% unemployment. We really have to start making moves towards it. I mean, we've seen it ourselves. I mean, just within us and within like the close network that we are in the cannabis industry. I mean, we know probably 200 people that are employed directly by cannabis, and it's still not even legal. That's not even cannabis itself. It's paraphernalia. It's the spades to the gold rush. It's not even the gold rush yet.
And then I could probably tell you about maybe like another 100 that are all cultivating and working off that and have for a long time. And even though that still may fall in the black market, it's still money coming in. And the government could be benefiting directly from that money. Everyone wants to be able to cultivate more and to do more with the product, but you can't because of the some people are willing to take that risk, but there's the fear of being arrested and being persecuted for doing so. And the government could so easily just benefit from that. They could there could be testing, there could be taxation, there could be
medical
forms that you need to pay for to get. The government loves doing that as well. So they could be raking
taxes, VAT,
exactly. Every gram sold could get 15%. The government could be raking it from those grams.
And if you look at our alcohol industry, it's huge as it is.
Yeah, and I mean, if they got over the fact that a sheer amount of cannabis means dealing, and like that's the only way to tie it. And if they went the same way with alcohol, I could go down to the bottle store down the road from me and drop 25 grand now and be like, give me all your stock, bring it home and like lie on top of it in my house with no fear. But if I went and got 25 kilos of cannabis and lay on top of that and like rolled around in it, then I'd have to be like fearful that the govy was going to come and arrest me. You know? How many grams are being sold right now in South Africa? Probably thousands. It's probably kilos moving.
You're not stopping us. If anyone from the government's watching it, it's like you're not doing anything to stop the trade of bud. Whatever you're doing,
it's already been being
working.
traded. The black market's been there for as long as the illegal market has been, as long as it's been illegal. And the government could easily slap their 15% VAT, plus they'd probably put sin tax on top of it as well. So that would be like an extra like 25%. So they probably could be raking in like 40% tax on each gram sold. But at the moment, they're just like ignoring it and rather arresting people. And that's costing them. It's not costing us.
Yeah.
It's costing them. So they're losing out on all fronts.
Yeah.
And just for someone who's educated on cannabis, it actually just seems so stupid.
It's
why not? Oh no, cannabis is more harmful than alcohol. What about the children in the homes? You've never like if cannabis was legal, all the dads would probably be dukkeruk, and you'd have like less like drunk people like fucking causing domestic abuse and shit like that.
Exactly.
Like,
well, they saw when they
just
banned
be, like
alcohol
eating loads
during
of like food and like cooking more food and like watching funny TV shows and shit instead of like like alcohol definitely makes people more violent than cannabis.
Yeah, it makes you aggressive. It's I mean, also if you drink too much, you just die. Like if you just drink too much, you fall over and die. You choke on your own vomit.
If you smoke too much, you like fall asleep. You might get a bit of anxiety, but like like that's the worst that it comes from. You might like think you're gonna die.
Kids die from alcohol poisoning all the time. All the time.
No, but I mean, look at the. I read something quite recently about like some of the looting that had taken place in KZN, and there was this like, I think you were saying something as well, Andy. There was like a bottle store that was robbed, and there was like so many people found dead from like drinking so much alcohol and then like passing out and like dying from pneumonia and like from just like sheer overconsumption, because you pass out from being too drunk and then like died from pneumonia because you were like just too drunk and you wouldn't wake up. But that would
not
never
pneumonia.
happen.
That's from like lung disease. But yeah,
what is it
just
like?
Alcohol poisoning, or unless they like.
Yeah, but like the freezing when you like freeze to death. Isn't
overnight.
Yes.
Hypothermia.
Hypothermia. But
like
that would like if a weed dispensary was raided, it would probably be the McDonald's next door that got raided next.
Yeah, it's ridiculous. I mean, how can you ignore that alcohol's doing that and then at least be consistent. Like, if you're going to be, we're coming up to the end of our rant. Sorry, guys. But if you're, at least be fucking consistent. You know, like if you're gonna have alcohol available, if you're gonna have cigarettes, I mean, you can smoke cigarettes and you're basically killing yourself from the first cigarette you smoke. And alcohol, you're also, you have chance of killing yourself. It's also one of the leading heart diseases, one of the biggest killers in America. I'm sure alcohol doesn't help with that.
And how many
liver diseases.
How many parents smoke around their kids, just breathing in secondhand smoke? I mean,
yeah.
my dad was a smoker. I can tell you for like at least 10 years, I drove around in a car like breathing cigarette smoke in, and like there's no one batted a fucking eye about that. But if you were to spark up a spliff, you would have like been in the chookie like instantaneously. There's no consistency, and it makes no sense that something that has clear medical properties is hated on. Whereas two items that have absolutely no medical properties that are directly negative are just seen as normal in society. And that's the stigma that needs to change.
Anyway, guys, that's pretty much our rant. Let's hope someone influential's listened. We need the jobs. We need the economy getting propped up. This is an easy way to do it. It's not a hard thing to do. Make sure to always like and subscribe to the videos. And take you guys next week. Peace, y'all.
Peace, guys.